They told you money was evil. They said rich people can't be holy, that if you love God, you better get used to struggling. But what if that mindset isn't holy at all, just inherited fear disguised as faith? What if the Bible actually holds secrets to making money with divine purpose, and the people who followed those principles for centuries are the proof? The truth is, Jewish tradition has preserved financial wisdom that's both practical and deeply spiritual. It's not about manipulation or greed, it's about alignment. And when you understand how desire, giving, work, and wealth all connect to God's light, money stops being a burden and becomes a blessing. This video reveals what most churches never teach and what secular culture gets dangerously wrong. You'll learn how money carries energy, why tithing multiplies, and how to think, spend, and grow your finances without guilt. The goal isn't just to make money, it's to become the kind of person God can trust with abundance. If you've ever felt torn between your love for God and your ambition to prosper, this message will bring clarity. And not just clarity, activation. Because once you see money through heaven's eyes, you'll never look at your business, your income, or your bank account the same way again. Money has a soul. Why it's never neutral in the Bible or in life. Some people think of money as just paper, metal, or numbers in a bank account, but from a biblical and spiritual lens, money has a deeper nature. It carries energy. The Bible never treats money as a passive object. Instead, it reveals that money is shaped by the moral and spiritual state of its owner. Just like fire can warm or destroy, money reflects the hands it's placed in. It's never neutral. Once it's in your pocket, it starts to speak your character. According to the ancient Jewish tradition, especially in the teachings of the Kabbalah, money is a vessel of light or darkness. It becomes an extension of the soul of the one who owns it. That's why two people can hold the same amount of money, but the spiritual effect is completely different. One builds hospitals, the other funds corruption. Same dollar value, entirely different spiritual consequence. Proverbs 11:1 says, "A false balance is abomination to the Lord, but a just weight is his delight." Even in transactions, character matters. You don't just have money, you imprint your essence on it. If you earned it with integrity, your money carries a signature of righteousness. If it was gained through deceit or ego, it becomes a carrier of spiritual decay. That's why in Deuteronomy 23:18, God rejects offerings earned through immoral means. The money may look clean, but the energy behind it is corrupt. In God's economy, source matters as much as substance. Money has a spiritual pulse. It reveals what drives you. Did you create that wealth to bless others, or to build an idol to yourself? And it works both ways. How you spend your money reveals what already lives in your soul. Jesus said in Matthew 6:21, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." The way you treat money is never just about math. It's a mirror of your inner world. Think about this. If money is simply a tool, why does it hold so much emotional weight? Why does it make us feel powerful, anxious, greedy, or grateful? That's because it's tied to identity. It's tied to survival, security, ego, and impact. Money isn't passive. It responds to your consciousness. And it will multiply whatever mindset governs you. That's why people who chase money for control often feel more empty as they earn more. This is why biblically minded entrepreneurs must treat money like a calling, not just a currency. If money has a soul, then every dollar you touch becomes a messenger, a reflection of your faith, a seed that carries your intention into the world. So the real question isn't just how much you make, but who you're becoming in the process. Because from here on, the money you earn will either carry your purpose or expose your pain, the energy behind your paycheck, what you're really selling. Most people think they're simply trading hours for dollars, but spiritually, what you're exchanging isn't just your time, it's your essence. When you show up for work, when you build a business, you're not just doing tasks. You're pouring your energy, focus, and emotional bandwidth into something. And money? That's the echo of that energy returning to you. That's why the Bible places so much emphasis on how you work, not just what you earn. Colossians 3:23 says, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord." In the spiritual economy, your paycheck is more than a receipt, it's a reflection. Every dollar carries the vibration of your intention. Did you give excellence, or just enough to get by? Did you serve others with a generous heart, or manipulate outcomes to your advantage? These invisible forces are not ignored in heaven's accounting. Proverbs 22:29 says, "Do you see a man skillful in his work? He will stand before kings." That's because skill mixed with integrity releases a spiritual aroma that attracts favor. Let's break it down in a modern example. A business owner who builds something that solves problems, treats employees with dignity, and serves with honesty isn't just making money. They're multiplying light. On the flip side, someone who cuts corners, lies in advertising, or underpays workers is not just making money. They're multiplying spiritual pollution. Money remembers what it costs to earn it, and that memory follows it. The ancient sages taught that the spiritual value of money is not in the number. It's in the source. That's why someone can earn $100 and be blessed, while another person earns $10,000 and still feels cursed. The first exchanged value with integrity. The second sold something sacred for something hollow. In spiritual terms, it's not just what you do, it's what it's doing to you. That's the real transaction. When you put energy into your work, you're shaping the kind of money that enters your life. If you resent your job, feel trapped, or work only for survival, that energy follows your finances. And over time, that resentment can block flow. But when you create, build, or serve from purpose, even in a small way, you start to shift the vibration behind your income. And that shift can unlock unseen doors. So ask yourself, what am I really selling? Is it just my time or my identity? Am I investing my divine gifts with intention or leaking energy in places I was never called to be? The truth is, money doesn't just measure effort, it reflects alignment. And when your soul and service are aligned, money becomes more than payment. It becomes confirmation, desire, ego, and abundance. The financial battlefield of the soul. Every financial decision you make, whether it's what to buy, where to invest, or how much to give, flows from two competing forces, desire and ego. One expands your purpose, the other inflates your pride. The Bible never condemns desire itself. In fact, desire is holy when aligned with God's will. Psalm 37:4 says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and He will give you the desires of your heart." But when desire becomes self-centered and untamed, it morphs into ego, and that's where trouble begins. Ego says, "I need more to feel valuable." Desire says, "I want more so I can do more." That's a world of difference. The ego will always push you to acquire things that shout status, but whisper emptiness. Desire rooted in purpose will lead you to invest in things that produce fruit and peace. When you chase abundance from ego, money becomes your master. When you pursue abundance through desire aligned with God, money becomes your servant. Look around. How many people live in houses that are too big, drive cars they can't afford, or buy things to impress people they don't even like? That's ego spending, and it's spiritual sabotage. Ecclesiastes 5:10 warns, "Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income." That's not a budgeting issue, it's a soul issue. A war between self-worth and self-worship. But here's the twist. God is not against abundance. In fact, He is the source of it. Deuteronomy 8:18 says, "It is He who gives you the power to get wealth." But He doesn't bless your hustle just to feed your ego. He blesses alignment, intention, and stewardship. When your desire is filtered through gratitude and calling, abundance becomes holy ground. That's the battlefield. Do you build your kingdom or God's? The Kabbalists teach that unchecked desire becomes a spiritual black hole. The more you feed it, the more it demands. But when you harness desire with boundaries and mission, it becomes light. Even your business goals can be sanctified when driven by vision, not vanity. Are you building to serve? To lift others? To glorify God through your excellence? Then your ambition is not carnal, it's consecrated. So the next time you want to make money or grow your business, pause and ask, is this driven by fear or faith? Is this a reaction to lack or a response to calling? The battlefield isn't in your bank account, it's in your heart. And what wins there will shape everything else that flows into your life. Wealth is not a sin, the spiritual purpose of making money. There's a belief, especially among the overly religious or those hurt by poverty, that money corrupts, but Scripture doesn't say that. It says, "The love of money is the root of all evil," 1 Timothy 6:10, not money itself. That means money is just a mirror. It reflects whatever love rules your heart. If love of self rules, money becomes a tool for pride. But if love of God rules, money becomes a tool for purpose. The issue isn't cash, it's calling. Throughout the Bible, wealth is often a sign of favor, not failure. Abraham was very rich in livestock, silver, and gold. Genesis 13:2. Solomon was the wealthiest man alive, yet wrote the deepest wisdom on how to handle riches. Lydia was a wealthy businesswoman who helped fund the early church. Joseph of Arimathea was rich and buried Jesus in his own tomb. God has no problem with you making money. The question is, will you make it with him or without him? Wealth is not about stacking cash. It's about multiplying impact. When you make money, you are creating leverage for influence. More income means more margin. More margin means more capacity to give, serve, and lead. Proverbs 3:9 instructs, honor the Lord with your wealth. That command is impossible if you're broke. You can't finance good if you're constantly in survival mode. That's why pursuing wealth with the right heart is a holy act. But let's be clear, wealth without wisdom is a trap. When money grows faster than character, ego takes over. That's why spiritual maturity must go hand in hand with financial growth. The Kabbalah calls this the balancing of vessels. You expand your spiritual capacity before increasing your material reality. Otherwise, the blessing will crush you. That's why some people win the lottery and end up worse than before. They had the money but not the maturity. So if you want to be wealthy, good. Desire it. Pray for it. Strategize for it. But don't stop there. Grow the vessel. Study the word. Tithe faithfully. Serve generously. Practice integrity. Stay humble. Because the purpose of wealth is not to exalt you, but to equip you to bring heaven's order into earth's economy. When you start seeing yourself as a steward, not an owner, money begins to flow differently. And here's the real test. Can you ask God for more money without guilt? If you believe your business is a ministry, your bank account is part of your mission. So yes, wealth is not a sin. It's a stage for obedience, a platform for light. And when you embrace it that way, you don't just make money. You start multiplying meaning. Tzedakah and tithing, the Jewish biblical formula for multiplying wealth. If there's one principle that appears over and over in Jewish tradition, it's this. You don't grow wealth by hoarding, it multiplies by releasing. That's the mystery of tzedakah, often translated as charity. But it's deeper than that. It means justice. In other words, giving isn't optional. It's divine alignment. In Malachi 3:10, God commands, bring the whole tithe into the storehouse. Test me in this, and see if I will not throw open the floodgates of heaven. It's the only time in Scripture God invites us to test him. Tithing, the act of giving 10% of your income, is a spiritual system of trust. It says, God, I believe that 90% with your blessing is more powerful than 100% in my control. And you know what? It works, not just for the super spiritual. Business owners, freelancers, even people in financial struggle who tithe consistently begin to see unexpected doors open, new clients, favor in negotiations, peace in financial decisions. It's not superstition, it's spiritual technology. Jewish financial culture doesn't just encourage giving, it builds systems around it. Many Jews tithe not only to religious causes, but to education, health, community development, and even strangers in need. The Talmud teaches that giving protects a person from misfortune and multiplies their merit. It's not about the amount, it's about the consciousness. When you treat money like a river, not a dam, it finds its way back to you with more force. Some Christians misunderstand tithing, thinking it's old covenant law. But tithing predates the law, and it was practiced by Abraham in Genesis 14:20 and reaffirmed by Jesus in Matthew 23:23. The principle isn't law, it's life flow. It connects your money to a higher source and assigns it to a higher purpose. If you're struggling financially, one of the most powerful moves you can make is to tithe, even from the little you have. Here's a practical example. If you made $500 this week, set aside $50 and give it intentionally. Don't just throw it anywhere, pray about it. Where is the Spirit leading you to sow? Your local church, a ministry that feeds the poor, a mission field, a teaching platform that feeds your soul. Give with joy, not guilt. And then watch. Test God with holy expectation, not manipulation. He honors faith. Tzedakah is not just about what you give, it's about what kind of person you're becoming. Generosity rewires your spirit. It breaks the grip of greed and fear. It turns money from a god into a tool. And the more you give with the right heart, the more you'll notice you don't just make money anymore, you move in divine circulation. How to spend without sin. Ego spending versus spiritual spending. Most people are taught how to make money, but almost no one is taught how to spend it with wisdom. The Bible doesn't just care about how you earn, it cares about how you release. Because every dollar you spend is a declaration. It says something about your heart, your values, and your priorities. Proverbs 21:20 puts it simply, The wise store up choice food and olive oil, but fools gulp theirs down. In other words, how you handle money is the mirror of your maturity. There are two ways to spend: ego spending and spiritual spending. Ego spending is driven by the need to prove something, to others or to yourself. It buys things for status, not function. It chases luxury over legacy. Spiritual spending, on the other hand, flows from purpose and peace. It asks, does this serve my calling? Does this reflect gratitude or insecurity? That question alone can save you from debt, anxiety, and regret. Let's say you're buying a car. Ego says, I need people to notice me. Spirit says, I need something safe, reliable, and aligned with my means. It doesn't mean you always choose the cheapest. It means you choose with intention. Even pleasures are allowed in the spiritual economy. God isn't against comfort, He's against addiction. Ecclesiastes 3:13 says that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. The Kabbalists teach that spending on unnecessary luxury without consciousness weakens the spiritual energy of money. It's like pouring light into a leaking vessel. But when you spend on what's needed, useful, or aligned with service, you preserve the divine energy within your finances. This is why giving to charity multiplies, but buying a third luxury watch often leads to emptiness, because the intention behind the transaction shapes the spiritual outcome. Here's a simple test. Ask yourself before any purchase, does this expand light or does it feed ego? That $20 book that grows your mind may be worth more than the $200 pair of shoes that only boosts your self-image. Spending with purpose empowers. Spending from impulse enslaves. That's why budget planning is not just smart, it's spiritual. It gives you structure to protect your energy. And don't forget daily habits. The rabbi in the original teaching said, give something small every day, 3 coins even. Why? Because frequency builds identity. If you give, bless, and spend with awareness every day, you rewire how money flows in and out of your life. You're not just spending, you're stewarding. You're practicing dominion over your finances, not letting your feelings dominate them. The rich mindset. According to God, how to think about money the right way. The battle for wealth doesn't begin in your bank account, it starts in your belief system. God doesn't just want to bless your finances. He wants to transform your financial mindset. Romans 12:2 says, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That includes how you view money. Most people are either trapped by a poverty mindset or seduced by a prosperity fantasy. But God's economy runs on wisdom, not extremes. A poverty mindset says, I'll never have enough. It makes you suspicious of abundance and afraid of opportunity. It justifies staying small and spiritualizes being broke. But Jesus didn't preach lack. He fed crowds, multiplied resources, and even told Peter to find tax money in a fish. That's not poverty, that's provision. And God wants you to walk in that mindset, not to worship wealth, but to flow in purpose without fear. On the flip side, the prosperity fantasy says, God owes me riches. It reduces the gospel to a vending machine and treats faith like a formula. But biblical wealth is never about chasing gold. It's about walking with God in the garden of stewardship. Deuteronomy 28 promises blessings, yes, but only after it says, if you fully obey the Lord your God. Obedience is the soil. Abundance is the fruit. So what is the rich mindset, biblically speaking? It's the ability to see money as a tool, not an identity. It's the peace that says, God is my source, not the paycheck, not the market, not the client. It's the confidence to invest wisely, save diligently, and give generously, because you're not ruled by fear. You know who you are and whose you are. That's the kind of mindset that attracts favor and multiplies influence. People with a godly money mindset don't panic during downturns. They don't hoard during scarcity. They plant in famine like Isaac, Genesis 26:12, and reap 100-fold. Not because of market conditions, but because of covenant alignment. They take risks with discernment. They spend with purpose. They pray over their business decisions. And they tithe without hesitation. Because they know money flows through them, not to them. And here's the final mark. They grow. Not just financially, but spiritually, relationally, intellectually. A truly rich person, according to God, is always expanding. Not for vanity, but for capacity. They know that God prospers people to become answers in the world. They don't just make money, they make meaning. They build businesses, movements, and legacies that reflect the kingdom. We've spent the last minutes uncovering a truth that religion rarely explains and society constantly distorts. Money is spiritual. It's not dirty. It's not random. It's a tool shaped by the soul that holds it. And if you've made it this far, chances are your heart is already shifting. You don't just want to make money. You want to make meaning. You want your business, your income, your every dollar to carry God's fingerprint. But now the decision is yours. Will you treat your money like a mirror or a mask? Will you keep chasing numbers or start building with purpose? Will you keep spending from ego or start investing from vision? This isn't just a teaching. It's a call to responsibility, because the way you handle money reveals the kind of legacy you're writing. Write in the comments, "I was chosen to prosper with purpose," and watch how this powerful declaration begins to shift the course of your business and your finances from this day forward. Maybe the world doesn't talk about this. Maybe your church avoided it. But you're not here by accident. You're here because God is raising up a new kind of entrepreneur, one who prays, plans, and prospers. So let me ask you, are you willing to be that person? Are you ready to shift from survival to stewardship? Are you willing to tithe with trust, build with conviction, and spend with heaven in mind? If this message touched you in any way, consider supporting our mission through the link in the description. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss the wisdom God is pouring out for kingdom entrepreneurs like you.